Hey YouTube, well, Rob back again. Well, apparently it's been a month since my last update. That seems to have gone rather quick. I did try to make some videos sort of in between since my last video, but I just never got around to it. Haven't had the time, and perhaps just been a bit slack too, I suppose. I've got quite a huge stack here. I have sort of watched, I have bought quite a lot and sort of watched quite a lot. I'm not going to show you perhaps every single thing that I did sort of watch and buy, but this is sort of the major sort of chunk of it all. There's quite a lot here, so we're going to make a start on it. Okay, so first one here is actually a steel book. It's probably more of a metal pack, I suppose, technically. It's just the steel book. It's not the actual movie. This is Mad Max Fury Road. Now, this is not actually the movie steelbook. I'm pretty sure this is only sort of the PS4, PlayStation 4 edition, but it was on eBay for like $10 or something, so I thought, well, I might as well grab it, and when I do sort of pick up the movie eventually, I can stick it in here and pretend I have the official, Mad Max steelbook. So that's that. I'll just quickly show that, just quickly. Nothing really overly exciting about it, I suppose. Yeah, so on to some films. The first probably 2 or 3 here, probably films that I had no real interest in sort of seeing. They weren't particularly, didn't look like my particular, sort of movies that I'd sort of like that much. But they were sort of rather cheap, and people had sort of been, I have sort of heard people sort of praise them and, reckon they were really good. So I thought I'd give them a watch, and, and sometimes, I think sometimes it's good to sort of watch movies that, you're not necessarily all that interested in, just to sort of, you might be surprised that, how much you enjoy them, sort of thing. First one here is Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I think was, from what I understand, pretty big hit, I suppose, last year, and, as I said, a lot of people were sort of raving on about it. I thought it was alright. I didn't think it was really that amazing. I actually probably would go as far to say I didn't think it was a particularly well-made movie, if I can say that. But, a lot of people, I think did like this movie quite a lot, so that's fine. I mean, we can't, as I've sort of said before, we can't all like the same movies. I just sort of found it was, well, first thing probably to say that it's based on a book written in the 90s, so that pretty much some way sort of dates it, even before you sort of start, so there sort of were some sort of things that were sort of, found rather cliched about it, I suppose, and but as far, I just didn't think it was particularly well made. A lot of the, especially sort of the first half, a lot of the sort of scenes I didn't think were particularly, they seemed to me like they were sort of first takes of a lot of these scenes, because they didn't really seem to be, I'm pretty sure they could have done, reshot it and, done it better, and some of the performances I think perhaps were a little bit sort of flat, I thought, whereas I don't know, maybe I was just expecting a little bit more performance-wise. A lot of the scenes I thought were too rather sort of forced, and didn't sort of seem all that sort of natural. Yeah, I don't know, I've got a lot here to talk about, so I won't sort of go on too much, I suppose. But, I mean, I probably would end up sort of rewatching it again, maybe, because sometimes I think you've got to watch a movie twice, I think, sometimes to sort of, fully appreciate, I suppose, a film, or, get a bit of understanding of it. But as a first-time watch, I didn't think it was really, it was alright, I thought, and, I don't know, I just thought it was going to be a lot better. Maybe it was a bit sort of overhyped, so that's that. Another film, I think from a few years ago now, similar sort of, teen romance, type movie. This is Fault in Our Stars. Another film I think does have, some problems with it, but I think I did actually quite like this one a lot, really. I did like it. I feel maybe if I sort of watched it maybe a couple of times, I probably would start to sort of, pick holes in it, sort of thing. But I just thought the performances of these two were just really, quite well done, and very sort of natural, and I don't know, I enjoyed them characters a lot more, say, compared to, Perks of Being a Wallflower. Essentially, most people know what it's about. It's sort of about these two, and basically they've sort of, got cancer, sort of thing, so they're very sort of sick, and just, I don't know, just sort of find each other and fall in love, and I guess have a bit of adventure together, I suppose, in some ways. It's sort of a film that it does sort of start sort of by saying it's not going to be your particular, your typical sort of, romancy, teen drama type movie, whatever. But it does sort of fall into some of those sort of, rather cliched, melodramatic, teen moments, I suppose, in it. But there are a lot of very sort of heartfelt scenes to it, and I just really actually quite liked it. I thought it was, really well done. And I don't know, yeah, I just thought it was good. So that's that. I was actually quite surprised, really, on that one. Another film from a few years ago, which I never sort of seen, and I guess in some ways maybe I didn't necessarily have a huge wanting to see it, because I thought it was just going to be, rather silly. That's Easy A, which I did actually quite like it though. I thought it was actually quite good. It did remind me a lot of, Mean Girls, which I suppose it's one of my goodie pleasures. I suppose I have sort of watched that film quite a few times. Similar sort of vibe, sort of teens in high school, and I don't know if I go too much storyline, I suppose, but you sort of got Emma Stone here. You sort of, I don't know, sort of rumours start circulating that she's, I guess a bit of a slut, I suppose, I don't know. There's no other way to explain it, I suppose. And she sort of starts to get this reputation, and she sort of gets, boys start to sort of pay her money, not to sort of do anything, but just sort of, just sort of spread the rumour around that they've, got with her and, whatever. I guess in some ways it's perhaps a bit of the film itself sort of, sort of a social commentary, I suppose, on how girls are sort of, have the sort of, I guess in some ways have sex with someone in high school, and they're sort of deemed all sluts, and whereas guys can pretty much sleep as, as many, girls as they want without sort of being, criticised, type thing. But yeah, I thought it was actually quite good. Some really good sort of lines to it, and Emma Stone, he was, really great to see on screen. Pretty easy on the eye. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was actually quite good, really. I was actually quite surprised, really. Next one here is actually a film that I think from last year or this year. I thought it was supposed to be a bit of a flop. That's what is it? Exodus, Gods and Kings. I think Ridley Scott's sort of last film. A film that, yeah, as I said, wasn't particularly well received. But I suppose I was a bit curious to sort of, check it out and see, see what it was all about. And yeah, I mean, I can admit it wasn't a particularly amazing movie, I suppose. But I think, I think I did sort of like it to a certain point, though. I mean, I sort of watched probably the first 5 minutes of it and thought, oh, this is going to be absolutely terrible. It's a really sort of bad dialogue, and kind of, I noticed with a lot of these sort of period piece, type sort of films that are made today, they're all pretty much actors just sort of get together and play dress ups. That's what it sort of, that's what it sort of seems to me. Like they're all just, I don't know, it sort of just seems like they're all just sort of dressed up for, for fun of it, sort of thing. I don't know, it doesn't sort of quite work, I don't think, we're seeing on screen. Just they're all sort of, all traditionally sort of, brand new looking, shiny looking clothes, and I guess also on Blu-ray too, I suppose. That doesn't sort of help either. It doesn't sort of make you think you're sort of watching some old sort of film, does it? Or something that sort of happened, quite a while ago, because it's all sort of shiny and brand new and up to date, sort of thing. As I said before, it's directed by Ridley Scott. I think he's supposed to be a bit of an atheist, so to him sort of to make a film about, stories from the Bible, it's sort of a bit of a conflict there, I think. So in some ways, this sort of it doesn't sort of show these sort of epic sort of scenes like Moses sort of parting the Red Sea. It doesn't sort of show that as sort of being a big sort of event by God. If that probably hard to explain, I suppose, but it's sort of toned down a little bit and sort of in some ways maybe sort of shown as more of a sort of a natural thing to sort of happen compared to having, God's hand come down and sort of, create these events. If that's, I don't know, it's probably not making any sense there, but hopefully you sort of get what I mean. It's sort of a film that's, I think, sort of kind of maps, some ways trying to sort of show it as sort of being sort of all these things that happen are supposed to be maybe more natural events and not necessarily divine intervention from God, type thing. Anyway, It's a rather sort of long film too, I think. And it does get a bit bogged down, I think, especially in sort of the middle. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I probably liked it perhaps a bit more than some other people. But I guess in some ways, it's definitely not an amazing film, I suppose, by any sort of imagination. So that's that one. On to a few sort of science fiction-y type ones recently. Well, they've come out recently. Ex Machina, or Ex Machina, however you want to say it. Another film that does sort of get a lot of, did seem to get a lot of buzz. Another film I didn't think was, I don't know, I thought it was alright. I guess my major problem with this movie is the same problem I had with Black Swan. They're both films that are very much information sort of getting spoon-fed to you, and you're not really quite sure what's going on, you know, in these movies, and you keep watching it because you want to find out what's happening, and you don't really get anywhere. Like you sort of get after a time you just get sick of not quite understanding, you know, what's going on, and sort of being intentionally being sort of information sort of being kept back from you, sort of thing. And by the end of it, you don't really care, you know. Well, at least I find that sometimes I just don't really care, you know. And this film is sort of, yeah, you have these sort of scenes where you're not sure what's going on exactly, and then the movie ends, and it's like, well, you know, what happened in it? You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just didn't quite understand exactly what was happening. I suppose maybe I got a bit confused with it. I don't know, but I couldn't sort of read in between the lines in some ways. I don't know. It was all right, I suppose. And if I gave it another watch, I might perhaps understand, perhaps, you know, more about what's going on. But in some ways, maybe I don't really care, you know, because I just got sick of it, you know. Anyway, so that's that. I mean, I do understand a lot of people did seem to like this one, and I don't know. I might give it another watch another time. I didn't think much of it, really. I just found it rather a bit of a frustrating watch. Another film, I think, from last year that was another sort of flop. That's Jupiter Ascending, done by the Wachowski brothers, who sort of did the Matrix movies. Another film, I think, I don't know. I don't think it was just. I don't think it was based on a book, or was it? It might have been based on a book, but another film that sort of suffers from that sort of. I don't know. You get this feeling that the books might have been, if there was a book, was sort of based on a trilogy of books, and they've tried to cram those 3 books into this, you know, one movie, and it just, yeah, it doesn't quite work, because it does sort of feel like it's sort of all these sort of nice action scenes sort of strung together with a bit of story, you know, in between, sort of, because that's, you know, kind of what that's kind of what I got that's kind of the way I sort of felt about it anyway. I don't know, it wasn't too bad though. I think I did sort of quite like it, I suppose. It's got, you know, Mila Kunis in it, so you know, that was worth watching alone. Yeah, I don't know what to sort of say about it, I suppose. It was alright, I suppose. It was just, I don't know, maybe it should have been a trilogy of movies. I mean, that probably would have made it, or even perhaps, you know, I think I did read somewhere on IMDb, someone said might have been a good, like, TV sort of special, like a, you know, sort of a mini-series, you know, type thing, which, you know, I think it probably would have been a better idea. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I think some people said it was rather terrible, but it was alright. I mean, you know, I think I liked it to a certain point. I think there's a few films I think are actually, I have sort of heard other people recommend them, and I did actually quite like the next 4, I think it is. I'm pretty sure, I think Andrew Balliner was talking about the next couple, actually. He was sort of recommending these ones to me, and I think I liked pretty much all of them. Iron Sky, which I thought was, yeah, actually quite good. It's a bit of a sort of silly sort of premise, I suppose, sort of about these apparently the end of World War II, the Nazis sort of you know, shoot this rocket up to the dark side of the moon, and sort of to sort of plan an invasion. They're going to come back to Earth eventually, and, you know, take over, sort of thing. So they've been up there for, like, I think it's like 70 years or something like that. So then they've decided to sort of come back down to Earth and, you know, take over. A bit of a sort of a silly premise, I suppose, but it was a very sort of fun movie. I thought I did actually quite like that one. I did actually, you know, quite like this one. I thought it was actually, yeah, really fun. This one here is a film I thought was just, pardon my French, absolutely fucking fantastic. This is Wormwood, which I said, as I was sort of saying, pretty sure Andrew Bowner was talking about this one, and I just thought this movie was just absolutely great. It's not a particularly, I'm not sort of a huge fan of horror, I suppose, or particularly sort of over the top horror, but this one I did actually quite like it. I thought this was actually really well done. Just sort of a zombie, type outbreak type film, and some really great sort of special, practical effects to it, and I don't know what to say. I just thought it was absolutely great from start to finish. Sort of, I sort of loved every sort of second of it, all the sort of the over the top sort of violence and the, a decent sort of storyline to it, and just a really sort of fun watch. I thought this is definitely one I would sort of recommend. I thought it was just a blaze of fun, I suppose, if I can sort of put it like that. Really great. Definitely recommend that one. The Raid, which I have sort of heard a lot of people talk about, and another film I thought was actually quite good. Some really great sort of martial arts, type action, over the top action in it, and reminded me a lot of the Judge Dredd movie of a couple of years ago. I'm not sure I think this one might have come out first before that movie or whatever. But just think about this sort of these cops that sort of go into this big sort of high-rise building to try and take out this drug lord sort of thing, and and they just only barely make it out because they get pretty much outgunned sort of thing, or outmanned. Really fun watch as well, that one. Another sort of a classic horror movie, I suppose. Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, on the Cinema Cult collection. That's another one I actually quite like a lot, actually. I don't know, really great 80s sort of practical effects, and the Crypt Keeper's always always a great character to watch. I think this is supposed to be, I think they were trying to go like a trilogy of movies. I think that was the original sort of idea. I don't think they actually they did sort of like 3 movies, I think, all up, but they weren't necessarily all linked together. I think the second movie, I think, I just can't remember the title of, it does sort of follow the same sort of premise, I suppose, around it, but it's a different sort of storyline, apparently. This is another sort of fun watch. I thought this was actually really good. That's a good one, that one. I'll try to get through these a bit quicker, so I don't want to have a hugely long video. I don't want to ramble on too much. A few animated ones. Romeo and Juliet, which I had heard wasn't particularly well received, but I thought it was a bit of a fun watch. I did actually quite like it. Obviously a bit of a spoof on the Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare sort of story. I just thought it was a decent sort of fun watch. It was, it wasn't as bad as, I don't know, I thought it was actually quite decent, really. Not amazing, I suppose, but it was decent, I thought. So that's that one. I bought this one here, a bit of an anime collection. I think it was like ridiculously cheap on eBay. I sort of bid on it and won on it. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. Samurai Champloo, or however, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it or not. I don't know all that much about it. I think it's supposed to be, I think it's sort of based on sort of, I guess it's some way sort of true events, I think, but definitely a bit of a sort of a twisted version, I suppose, if that sort of makes sense. A bit of a lot of liberties, I think. There is a bit of a truth to it. I think the basic premise is supposed to be true, but I think it's definitely sort of takes its own direction from what I've heard. I think this is like, I don't know, $15 or something. I think it's like a 3-disc set, so it's a complete series. And anime like this of it's like $40 or $50 sometimes, for a set like this, and I got it for like dirt cheap, so I couldn't really pass that up. So that's that one. Got The Usual Suspects, a film I did sort of watch, probably 15 years ago or something. So I couldn't remember anything about it, and I have sort of heard a lot of people on here sort of talking about and saying how much of a great movie it was, and so it's been one I sort of wanted to pick up for quite a while, and give it a watch. It has a bit of a twist ending to it, so I wanted to sort of find out what that was. Before it was sort of sport for me, sort of thing. and it's actually quite good. I actually quite liked it. I thought it was a really good storyline to it, and yeah, not a bad movie. I think I did sort of guess what the twist was going to be though, sort of 3/4 through the movie. But yeah, definitely I did actually quite like. I was actually I think it did sort of up to the hype for me, that one. Bit of a random one, I suppose. The Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio, who gives an absolutely amazing performance in this. As people sort of say, why hasn't he won an Oscar yet? This is based on the true story of Jim Carroll. I think that's the name of the guy. Who basically is, I guess, about a guy that sort of he's in high school, and he's really good on the basketball court, and he wants to be a writer, and he's extremely talented, and but he does sort of end up sort of starting to take heroin, and pretty much his life just falls apart after that, and he just basically becomes a complete junkie, and really hard to function sort of thing. Yeah, I thought it was actually quite good, and definitely some really great sort of scenes with Leonardo DiCaprio here, sort of being on drugs, and when she's sort of coming off the drugs. It was quite quite messy to sort of watch, I suppose, if that sort of makes sense. But definitely a good film. I actually quite like that one, actually. Now she's running about halfway through, I think. Hopefully we're able to get through them all. Another film I had pretty much no interest in really sort of seeing, but it was rather cheap, and I wanted to give it a bit of watch. That's Into the Woods, which I didn't know was a musical until I watched it, but I did sort of watch it anyway. I'm not, I guess, a huge sort of fan of musicals. Actually, I mean, I don't mind the movies necessarily. Some of the songs, I sometimes I do end up sort of fast forwarding through some of these musical songs in these movies. This is one I did actually quite like a lot, actually, though. I was quite surprised, really. I mean, I should perhaps rephrase it. I really enjoyed probably the first, I think, hour and 15 minutes of it. Hour and 15 minutes of it. But then the film ended pretty much at the hour 15 mark. But then they had this tacked on sort of bit to it. Which I suppose the idea was that it was, obviously it's based on a lot of, sort of classic sort of fairy tales with sort of happy endings, and I think maybe they were trying to sort of perhaps show maybe that things don't necessarily always have a happy ending, and what sort of happens after the happy ending, sort of thing. I think that's what they were sort of going for. So it's sort of, the film sort of ended with on a high note, and then just the next bit was sort of what happened afterwards, and I think that for me that sort of ruined the whole film. It was just really sort of, it didn't seem to fit for me, this sort of ending with sort of these bad things happening sort of out of nowhere, type thing. It was, I don't know, I didn't like that at all. But yeah, I did actually quite like it, really. So, if I've got to be honest, for a musical. Anyway, so that's that one. I won't go too much into it. I did actually get a few other musicals as well, though. A few classic ones here, just random black and white ones, which probably no one's ever heard of. This is Sun Valley Serenade, which is, I do actually quite like this one as well, actually. Has the Glenn Miller Orchestra, so there's a lot of really great sort of big band type music to it, which I thought was actually quite enjoyable. I didn't mind that, actually. A very sort of silly movie, though, just about sort of this struggling band that pulls a bit of a publicity stunt to try and get a bit more exposure, and there's sort of these I don't know quite explain it all, I suppose, but it's like sort of war refugees, and they're trying to sort of find place to come to in America, sort of thing. So one of the people in the band sort of agrees to sort of take on one of these refugees, sort of thing, to and I think it's going to be like a little boy or a little girl or something, but it ends up sort of being this young woman sort of thing, which she's sort of, gets there and sort of, it's almost sort of falls madly in love with the main character, and which of course obviously upsets his girlfriend, sort of thing. And there's a lot of, it's a very sort of silly plot and doesn't sort of make a whole lot of sense. But it was a very sort of fun movie, so I did actually quite like it. And they made a sequel as well, which I picked up too randomly. Orchestra's Wives, again featuring the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Not quite as good perhaps as the other one. Just sort of about more successful band this time, and just sort of about the main guy sort of falls in love with this girl he sort of meets in, you know, one of the cities that they sort of, you know, play, and they decide to get married, you know, as they do, you know, all of a sudden, when they've only sort of only just sort of met each other. And she sort of goes on the road with him, and she's, you know, thinks it's going to be glamorous and exciting, and she sort of finds out it's not, it's going to be rather dull, and a lot of the other sort of wives are rather sort of bitchy to her, and but yeah, it was alright, it wasn't, I don't know, I didn't mind it, it was bad. And then I got a big pile of Doctor Who movies. I think JB Hi-Fi will have this big sort of special where you can sort of, if you bought one Doctor Who DVD, you get the other one free, which is a great deal. So I did pick a big pile of these. The Rescue and the Romans, which is the original Doctor here, William Hartnell, which I'm quite a fan of him actually. I do actually quite like him. These early episodes are not very sort of slow watches though. Not a lot of action to them. So I don't think a lot of people probably, you know, would like them that much. I don't mind them. But they are definitely a bit sort of, you know, slow and drawn out though. That's that one. I picked up The Green Death, John Pertwee and Katie Manning. The Brain of Morpheus, Tom Baker. The Hand of Fear, another one with Tom Baker. The Creature from the Pit. And Vengeance of Varos. I do have a couple more somewhere as well, but someone's sort of borrowing there at the moment. But I did, yeah, they were like really cheap, so I couldn't really pass that up. So I grabbed them. Oh, I missed one. Hang on. This is yeah, Serena. I think I was going to show it at the start of the video actually. Another film I think was just, yeah, a bit of a flop. I think it was made in like 2010, I think, or 2012, but it was only released sort of last year. It had a bit of a rocky production period. I think the studio sort of came in and pretty much just edited the film a lot and pretty much ruined it. So it doesn't get particularly great reviews, and as I said before, it's a bit of a delayed sort of release on it. But I didn't actually think, I didn't know it was too bad. I mean, the editing itself, especially in sort of the first half, is not all that great. You sort of get, you're sort of watching this scene, and all of a sudden it'll just sort of fade out, and that's the end of the scene. You can sort of tell that the scene was at one point a lot longer, but for some reason it just sort of cuts out and it goes on to another scene. So it's a bit sort of, a lot of sort of jump cuts, I suppose, in some ways, and a lot of the film doesn't sort of make a whole lot of sense either, too, because I'm pretty sure they sort of cut out bits and pieces out of it, and which I don't know, I didn't sort of mind too much really, I suppose, even though you're sort of a bit confused maybe on with what's exactly going on, I suppose. But it does sort of have this sort of surreal sort of element to the film, which I did actually quite like. Obviously, you got Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper here, which are, you know, both great actors, and I'm a bit of a fan of Jennifer Lawrence. A film, if I had to sort of perhaps relate it to perhaps another film, it would definitely remind me a lot of There Will Be Blood, because it definitely had a similar sort of storyline to it. Bradley Cooper here, he sort of owns like a lumber sort of company where sort of they chop down trees, you know, sort of thing, and he was a very sort of successful sort of businessman. But I'm pretty sure I was sitting on in 20s, and I'm pretty sure I did sort of read that it was sort of around the time when they sort of had the big sort of not the, you know, the stock market crash, but the big sort of the Great Depression. I'm pretty sure, yeah, around that sort of time. And so he did sort of have, you know, he was quite wealthy, but he sort of had all his money was sort of stored in these sort of like bonds, you know, it's sort of it's all on paper sort of thing. So pretty much when this, you know, the Great Depression sort of started, like all these bits of paper that he has are all pretty much just worth nothing now. They're not worth any money because, you know, there's no money now, sort of thing. So it's pretty much sort of, somewhere sort of broken. There's the only thing he's got sort of this lumber sort of company, and so he's got to try and very much kind of like There Will Be Blood. He's got to try and to keep this sort of business alive to survive, and otherwise he's just going to be, you know, completely ruined. So he does do a few sort of dodgy things to try and, you know, keep this thing, you know, try to keep his business running, and But I mean, just not for himself though. I think he does sort of do it for his workers too, because they'll sort of be out of a job as well. So he just sort of tried, you know, his best to try and, you know, get everything working. And same with Jennifer Lawrence. She sort of has a bit of a sort of a sad past sort of thing. So she sort of, you know, does sort of do a few questionable things. Just, you know, try and sort of keep the business sort of running, and also to, you know, keep her husband, you know, sort of way. Probably explain this very well. But I didn't mind it actually. I thought it was actually wasn't too bad. I mean, particularly sort of the movie itself's not particularly put together very well because it has pretty bad editing and you know, but definitely I didn't think it was a terrible movie. I think I did actually quite like it really to a certain extent. So that's sorry no. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I did try to sort of get through this as quickly as possible. Hopefully I made some sense with what I was trying to say. Thanks for watching. Again, if you sort of see any of these, you know, movies, certainly tell me your thoughts on them, whatever. Always great to, you know, read comments. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye. That was fucking terrible.